So we went out, and instead of HP, we drove a multi-vendor strategy. That drove a lot of stress with HP because we were essentially, we no longer had a one-to-one relationship with them. So it inserted mistrust in my relationship with HP, right? Because now I had the opportunity to go sell something different, and HP didn't want me to sell something different. The second thing we did is we had to expand outside of Florida. Third thing is we had to expand outside of education. The fourth thing we did is we had to automate some of our things, and we tried to, not a penny of what we sold during that time was done over the internet. And at a time when everybody was selling technology over the internet. We had made a decision to do it much like a banker does it, right? Face to face, you build a relationship, you get to look at people in the eyes. If they need something, they're gonna call you, and that's how we had grown our business to that point. And the other thing that we did was we established a configuration center because we knew that we had to add more value to the things that we were doing. We had to differentiate ourselves from a services perspective. If you fast forward a couple of years, I would say that 5 out of those 7 we were able to execute on, right? And it was very difficult times. We were 90 days from having a bank pull our line of credit. We were 90 days from having GE say, and I know we were 90 days away because I would go up to Atlanta to talk to them and tell them what we were doing and how we were doing it. And I'll never forget, there was a gentleman by the name of David Lynch. By the way, I'm completely off script here, right? What I had planned to talk about is not what I'm planning to talk about. But there was a gentleman named David Lynch, and you know, I call it sitting in front of the firing squad. There were 6 or 7 folks from GE, and GE is a very conservative, methodical organization. And they said, Henry, your forecasting stinks. That's not the word they used, right? and he had an adjective to describe it before that. It was a very professional setting, but they were very upset, right? And I said, look, you see what's happening, you read it, you're feeling it. I'm telling you what our plan is and how we're executing against this plan. And the fact that we're behind on our ability to execute against this plan, but this is what we're doing, this is how we're diversifying ourselves, this is how we're expanding the opportunity for us to do more business. And by the way, at the time, we never decreased the amount of business that we were doing. The problem is we weren't making any money, right? So our revenues continued to climb because we started doing all this other stuff. And one of the things that we did was we got into healthcare. And the reason we got into healthcare is because from 2008 to 2015, healthcare was supposed to expand 10 times in terms of their spend on IT. So we said, look, even if we get lucky, or even if we're in the wrong place at the right time and someone sneezes on us, we're gonna do business, right? We're gonna get the opportunity to do a little bit of business. So we articulated that, and our banking business partners knew that we were protecting our credit, that we had to do what we said we were gonna do. We weren't missing our payments at our own personal sacrifice, and at that of our organization, but we kept our word, and that kept them in the game. And that kept them holding on to the UDT, the hope that UDT had to conduct their turnaround. Our CIO, our Chief Financial Officer, I'm sorry, our CFO, which was really at the time, he was the top guy, so by default, he was the CFO, right? He won Turnaround CFO of the Year that year because our revenues never decreased. We lost money for 3 years in a row, but we came out of the downturn and we grew substantially because of it. So why am I telling you this story? I don't need you to feel sorry for me, right? Look, I got 2 arms, 2 legs, I'm healthy, I'm standing upright, I'm above ground, I'm good, right? I tell you the story because when you find that it's hard, it is hard, but you're not alone, right? And as you grow, your problems will grow with you, and that's okay. That's a sign of success. So as I sit here and I think about, look, I don't want to be a dud speaker for you this morning, right? This is very valuable time that you've invested in coming here. And I want to make sure that you ask me whatever question you want, right? And hopefully I'll be able to deliver some of our personal experiences that'll help you be able to support your businesses. There's really 5 things that I came kind of to touch on briefly, just so that you understand, or that you get a feel for some of the things that you can ask me about or that you may want to ask me about. But, you know, one of them is communication. One of them is communication. And it's hard to sit in front of a customer that's not necessarily right and defend your organization. Because our innate, our first instinct is to defend UDT. But there's this little saying, right, where the customer's always right. And even when the customer's wrong, you can't let them know that. And that's one of the attributes and one of the things that we instill in our folks, right? And it's that, look, customers are not wrong on purpose. Sometimes they may be, but 1 out of 100 times, if that. Typically, customers just have a different perspective. And even when you're right and they're wrong, you have to make sure that you don't alienate yourself as a vendor. Because being right can get you fired. You don't want that, right? So, that's just one of the things that I can tell you that we experience on a day-to-day basis that we need to deal with. The other thing is partnership. I'll tell you, partnerships are hard, right? But some of the advice that I'll give you as it relates to partnership is, number one, you have to find a person that not only complements the technical skill or the skill in the line of work that you're in, but they have to complement you from a personality standpoint and from a trait standpoint. Number two is, you can't keep score, right? You can't, it's like a marriage, right? In a marriage, if you keep score, and I stopped doing that because I always lost, even when my score was higher than my wife's score, right? So in business, you can't keep score, because if you do, there's a winner and there's a loser. And if there's a winner and a loser, then there's no partnership. So one of the things that we do in our business is we don't use any of our expenditures, credit cards, none of that, for any personal expenses. We get a car allowance, and when my business partner and I are together, then we're typically talking about work, so the business pays. Otherwise, we don't expense anything through our business. And look, there's a downside to that, because sometimes there are some legitimate things that we could do and that are legitimate and approved by the IRS, but we don't do any of it. And the reason for that is because it just instills trust between me and him. And that's extremely important, because if you're not worried about trust, you're worried about everything else, and that's a good thing. And the third thing that I'll speak to as it relates to partnership is, coming from a football environment, you play a role. There's 11 guys on the field, but each person has a responsibility and they play a role. And if you worry about somebody else's role, then you're not doing your role. And the advice that I can give you, and some of the things that we've kept it very simple between the two of us, is, are you playing your role? And let's describe your role, because our roles have changed over time. We've had to play different positions over time, right? From janitor to CEO, and it doesn't matter, whatever the customer needs, right? Bob spoke a lot about what UDT has been able to accomplish here at Hillsborough County. And I'd like to talk just a few minutes about that, and then, I'll go ahead and open it for questions. What we first believed that we had to do, in some case, to some instance, what we were asked to do, and in some instance, what we thought was the right thing to do, was a hard thing to do. Let me kind of reframe that. Working with other OSD members for us was not easy. It was hard, especially in the beginning, because we're trying to grow our business. So it was a little counterintuitive to initially, when we're trying to grow our business, help somebody else grow their business. The second thing is, we weren't sure how we were going to do that. We weren't sure how we could kind of stay in our swimming lanes, play a role, assign a role, and have it be complementary. The third thing is, there's this little thing called trust, right? We didn't know if we could trust other partners for us to partner with in large contracts. But we had something that happened to us, and it was that we looked at ourselves and the relationship that we had with HP. And we looked at the relationship that we had with HP when HP was the prime on this contract. And when we went to HP and said, look, would you mind if we become the prime? You're still going to sell as much as you were selling before, but give us the opportunity to provide a closer, more appropriate, more tailored service to the customer. And they said yes. And that was a big step of trust on their behalf. So if HP can take a business that's that large and entrust a channel partner with it, a minority partner with it, then we should be able to do the same thing. And when we had that ask and they came back and said yes, we chose that it was the right thing for us to do. And even before that, but that was an example, and that solidified the decisions that we were making. that it was hard for us to do this. It was challenging. We were challenged with trust. We were challenged with finding the right, the right opportunity for us to, and the right organization for us to partner with. But I'll tell you, we've been doing it now for well over, I'd say, 5 or 6 years in this district, if not longer, probably 7 or 8 years. And not only do we do that here, but we do that in other customers in other geographies that we do business in today. And I'll tell you, if there's one thing that I could tell folks like ours that are capable or able to win some of these large contracts, it's that it's not just the right thing to do. Oh, by the way, we have this little saying at UDT, and it's do the right thing and then do things right. And there's a difference, right? So it's not just that it's the right thing to do, but it makes business sense. And I'll tell you why. It makes business sense for us to partner with folks like you. Economies don't stay flat. Nothing's consistent, right? So if nothing's consistent and there's ups and downs, and if we hire to peak seasons, we can't afford to keep folks at peak season in value points in terms of throughout the course of the year in our business. So we'll have summertime is very busy for us. Beginning of the year and end of the year tends to be pretty slow for us. So if we hire for peak, then we're going to lose a lot of money for 6, 7 months out of the year. So it just makes business sense for us to be able to go and say, you know what, we're going to hire to staff for 60% of what we're going to need all the time, or at peak season, and that'll cover what we need most of the time. But we're always going to contract 10 to 40% or subcontract 10 to 40% of the business that we win from customers. And again, it's not only because it's the right thing to do, it's good for business. So for some folks that may not think that doing the right thing applies, or that they may just not have that, that social responsibility that as a priority, it's still good business. So I hope I left you this morning with some thoughts as it relates to our success has not been with a substantial amount of lack of failures. I'll say one last thing, and it made a big impact on me this past Monday. HP Corporation just split up into 2 different entities. They thought, and there was a unselfish CEO at the helm of that organization that felt that if they split that organization into 2, that they would become more focused and a better manufacturer of technology products. So think about it. She had a really big business, $120 billion business. She decided to break that off into 2 pieces. So they launched that for the first time as the new entity November 2nd, which was Monday. We had the pleasure and the honor of being asked to go to Palo Alto, California to participate in this celebration that they had with employees where these organizations split. They invited us to dinner that night on HP campus, and they had the CEO of Netflix up on stage as a panel interview between the salad and the main course, right? Which was kind of problematic because we were kind of hungry, and the salad came and it was kind of a teaser, and then 45 minutes later the main course came, right? But I guess they needed a filler, but it was a really good filler. And we all know Netflix, and we all think of such a success story. The CEO of Netflix spoke for 30 minutes about his own personal failures and about the failures that Netflix has had as an organization. And I can't express to you how powerful that was to see an organization that has grown to their size as quickly as they have talk about and be as open as he was about the failures that he experienced as a leader of that organization, and a little bit of the hard work and a little bit of the luck that it took to overcome some of those things. So I hope I've left you with some thoughts, right? We all hopefully, we're all humans. We all have the same struggles at home. We all have the same struggles at work. I have a deep and sincere appreciation for what you guys do. It's what I do. I understand it. I understand the risks you take every day. I understand the patience. I understand sometimes the notion of losing your patience, right? But it's the right thing to do for your families. It's the right thing to do for your customers. It's the right thing to do for your community, right? Because at the end, we all need to do better. And if we all do better, we'll do better as a community. And I truly believe that if we all do better, there is so much business out there. There is so much opportunity. And sometimes as business owners, we tend to look at all of them. What we need to do is focus on 1 or 2 of them. Because if we succeed there, we'll have the opportunity to do more. So I hope I've dabbled just a little bit enough to get the juices flowing. This isn't supposed to solve world hunger up here in 20 minutes this morning. But hopefully I gave you a little bit, I described who UDT is and how we came to be and who we are today. So I'm very honored that you came to listen.